It's that time again, as we once again have the monthly report from NPD, this time for March 2017. And given that we had numerous monstrous releases in that month, including of course Zelda and the Nintendo Switch, it's hardly a surprise that the NPD group's report saw a significant uptick for the industry. We saw a pretty significant jump in hardware, which jumped a massive 91% year over year to $485 million, whereas software increased 5% to $612 million. Now, we did see a bit of a drop in PC gaming specifically, as it fell 25% to $29 million, but overall the industry actually saw a jump up 24% to $1.36 billion. Now, Nintendo are unsurprisingly a big contributor to all this success, as we have a comment from NPD analyst Sam Nagy, and he said, quote, "March 2017 will go down in history books as the month Nintendo broke records. The Nintendo Switch had the biggest hardware launch for a Nintendo platform and the second biggest launch for any video game platform since 1995, the time NPD began tracking this category. In this debut month, the Nintendo Switch sold 31k more units than previous best-selling Nintendo platform, month one platform, the Game Boy Advanced, which released back in 2001. The two Nintendo Switch SKUs, the 32GB Grey Joy-Con, followed by the 32GB Neon Red/Blue Joy-Con, were the best-selling systems of the month, and given that this is true, it should shock none of you that Zelda nearly managed to claim the top spot on the software charts, but digital sales were not included in this particular ranking. Now, you might be surprised by the game that actually managed to take this particular spot. Was it Horizon Zero Dawn, perhaps one of the other games that came out in March? No, it was actually Ghost Recon Wildlands, it seems, despite the reception to the game being a resounding it still secured the top position with, quote, best launch of any Ghost Recon title, and after The Division, it was the second best launch of any Tom Clancy game. So it seems overall that game actually did pretty well for itself, despite being not all that well received by critics. So, another interesting factoid about Zelda is that ever since NPD's tracking began, it has been rather impressive, and according to them, Zelda is the top-selling property of all time within the adventure supergenre. And it's actually sold 54% more, selling 54% more revenue to be exact, than the next best-selling franchise, which is actually Resident Evil. I know it seems a bit weird to see those two in the same category, but the adventure genre is extraordinarily broad, but it still is impressive that it's ahead of Resident Evil, which is, no small fry by such a significant margin. Now, in terms of physical units, Zelda actually sold 900,000 units, and the package with the Switch sold 1.3 million units, which is a record high according to NPD's figures, and surprisingly, the weird collection of games that aren't really games, that is 1-2 Switch, made the top 20 best-selling games chart. Now, so I know some of you are wondering, well, what about Horizon? That's an amazing game, and it did really, really well, I hope. And the answer is, it did, actually. Both Mass Effect and Horizon helped the industry reverse a decline since May of last year. That's been happening, obviously, year over year, as always. And it's actually the best-selling game for Guerrilla Games, which is pretty awesome. It actually sold twice as much as its next best title, according, again, to Sam Nagy, which was Killzone Shadowfall, which is pretty damn impressive. And Horizon was one of the titles that digital tracking is not actually included. The games that do have it are Zelda, Horizon, MLB, games that don't have it are Zelda, Horizon, MLB, and 1-2 Switch, as well as Super Bomberman R. Those all don't have the digital sales included, whereas a bunch of games do, like Ghost Recon, Mass Effect Andromeda, For Honor, Nier Automata, Battlefield 1, Overwatch, and so on and so forth. So the fact that these games rank so highly despite the lack of digital sales being included tells us that the picture for these games would be even stronger if the digital sales were actually included in the messaging, I suppose you could say. Basically, the TLDR of all of this is that Nintendo did really, really well in the month of March. Now, this obviously means that the Nintendo Switch did manage to beat both the PS4 and Xbox One. We saw that in the little preview of the NPD report we had last week. But for those of you wondering who was ahead out of the Xbox One and the PS4, it was indeed the PS4, but that should hardly be a surprise, I wouldn't really expect that to change until we see the release of the Scorpio, but of course Microsoft could have something big up their sleeves. That means they will have another 4-month streak like they had last year. It is entirely possible. So, with all that said, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.